Good evening. Welcome to the Portsmouth Town Council meeting of February 13, 2023. President Aguirre is unable to attend tonight, so I will be chairing the meeting. First, we'll review the emergency evacuation plan. There are two doors to your left over there, one door at the front of the room up here. And after exiting this building, we'll cross the street, cross Middle Road and gather in front of the school administration building and await further instruction. To begin our meeting, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And after the pledge, we'll observe a moment of silence for all our people around the world in harm's way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Go through our roll call.
Mr. Gleason,
Here.
Mr. Hamilton,
Here.
Dr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Levesque,
Here.
and Mr. Katzman.
Here. President's executive summary. Obviously, there will be no executive summary from the president tonight. We'll put that'll have to wait until the next meeting when the president is able to attend. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Motion to receive, to approve as presented. Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Levesque,
Aye.
Dr. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We are now sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. We have a application for entertainment license. Rhode Island Rugby Football Foundation East of the East Collegiate Rugby Tournament, Gardner 70 Sports Complex for April 22nd and 23rd, 2023.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Mr. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Levesque,
Aye.
Dr. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Move to
Vote.
adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Levesque,
Aye.
Dr. Ryan,
Aye.
Ms. Abbott. Aye. Mr. Katzman.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
You have to.
The town administrator's report, Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. Our Assistant Building Inspector, Matthew Kent, recently completed a safety assessment program. He is now a certified safety assessment evaluator. What that means is should there be a disaster where damage assessments of buildings need to be performed and the buildings need to be evaluated for occupancy safety, Matt is now qualified to perform this function on a national scale. What this means for the town of Portsmouth is, in addition to Gareth Eames, our building inspector, we now have 2 people trained and authorized to perform this function. Most municipalities in our area only have 1. So congratulations to Matt for this achievement in a significant milestone in his career. With respect to the audit, the annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year 22 has been submitted to the Auditor General. The audit is posted on our website and a hard copy is available for review in the town clerk's office. Our auditor will review the report with the town council at the next town council meeting on February 27th. The required state ethics training was held on Monday, January 30th. We had over 60 people participate either in person or remotely online. A link to the training is available on the town clerk webpage for those who are unable to attend. With respect to the impact fees, as required by Rhode Island general law, a review of the town's impact fee structure and policy was conducted by I'm going to miss this name up. Teichler Best firm. Leah's going to yell at me later. Tischler Bice firm. I asked her 3 times today how to pronounce it. The impact fee study and recommended changes will be presented to you at the March 13th town council meeting. With respect to the budget process is moving forward in accordance with the calendar approved by the council late last year and will be submitted to the council on March 31st. In addition to the review of civic support requests, which is scheduled for tonight, the second round of town department reviews will begin this week in Town Hall, and the first school administration budget meeting will be held on Wednesday evening. And then lastly, sadly, we mourn the passing of Dave Foucher. Dave was our finance director for 10 years, from 2004 to early 2014. He also previously served as finance director for the towns of Middletown and East Greenwich, and worked as the director of financial and administrative services for the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust. Prior to embarking on his career in municipal finance, Dave served in the United States Navy and retired as a commander in 1990. I know his passing deeply affects everyone who knew and worked with him, and we offer our deepest sympathy to his wife, his family, and those who loved and knew him. That concludes my report, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. Rader. Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Vice
Gleason.
President, I may. And Mr. Foucher was also the treasurer of the Portsmouth Historical Society, and he did a great job there, so he will be missed. Question, will we receive a hard copy of the audit prior to the next meeting?
Yes, you will. I hope to get him any day now. We asked for 13 copies.
Thank you. Also, there was a letter to the editor in the Portsmouth Times talking about an open meetings violation. And I have not personally, I have seen the letter because I had to ask for it, but is there something that's prohibiting the council from speaking about that? You know, I'm just.
No, not
I'm
at all.
concerned about
Anybody could ask me about it.
transparency.
Not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. Moving on to resignations and appointments. We have applications for appointments to the Dog Park Committee, Melville Park Committee, and Tree Commission. Mr. Levesque,
I would like to move that we appoint Joyce A. DeCosta to the Dog Park Committee based on her indication that she loves her dog.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
I would make a motion to reappoint Mr. Jeff Richard, but I think he's up there to say something. Is this for the Melville Park Committee appointment?
Before the vote,
Sure.
just in case you want to change your mind.
It depends on what you say.
Let's get our sort
A
of.
motion to
Thank you.
approve.
Seconded. We
Mr.
have a
Jeff
motion and a
Richard.
second before us, Mr. Richard.
You've noticed recently that we've
If you
had
could just state your name and.
Jeff Richard, 55 William Sutter Lane. I've been here since 1991. I know you all well, with possible exception, Mrs. Allen. Recently, we've had three folks depart the Melville Park Committee. We are unlimited in our membership. Those folks left because they moved. It's not they don't like to hug trees, because they were the best and the brightest people we had in the town. They have since moved on. The good news is, assuming you let me stay on there, we've added 2 more people. So we are actually moving in the right direction for membership. As you know, Glen Park, the commission, is really not a commission anymore. Melville Park is. So I hope you will say yes to my continuing. And shortly after we get through this part, that I'm first in new business to talk about our bylaws. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Richard.
Mr. Levesque?
Your microphone, there we go.
Oh,
Madam
but
Clerk. Your
I
microphone.
feel like I'm in 3rd grade again. Everybody keeps, I'm gonna get sent down the office. I move that we reappoint Jordan to the Tree Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye. Moving on to new business, the Melville Park Committee bylaws amendments. Mr. Richard?
I'll try to be quick on that. If you went through them, you saw that they were quite elaborate. Several years ago, we got together and the town council said, hey, we need bylaws. Melville Park is really a separate entity from the campground, as everyone knows, but it wasn't always that way. So we finally talked to Bob Driscoll into giving us our own budget. Before that, we were always in the campground. So with a budget, we became, hey, listen, you all need some bylaws so we can judge how you're doing and what and how you do it. So we did that. Then the next event is we created a department of recreation in the town. And I was looking at the bylaws the other day and I said, and I'm acting treasurer right now. I said, hey, this says that everything the treasurer does has got to go through the town's finance director. Well, that's not how things are managing right now. We're working through our new director of Parks and Recreation. That is a department. Therefore, Melville Park now falls within that domain. So we went through, and only a couple of instances, you may have noticed that we changed the word finance director to Parks and Recreation director. And that should do it, although, you know, the unanticipated consequence of making a department out of recreation, we're still growing in that department. And there's a lot of, in my view, a lot of growth possible. In Melville Park in particular, we'd like to have more supervision. We've sort of been independent on ourselves. And that's worked fine for the town. But for instance, the military fence that is supposed to keep everybody in tank farm #1 versus our park, well, there are massive holes in it and the Navy is not spending any money to take it down. My personal thought is the Navy wants to get rid of the land, can't find any ways to do it. And we have not chosen to take on the risk of having to take up a bunch of ground that's got a lot of oil in it. So there's got to be a solution to what we're going to do with.
If I may, Mr. Richard, I'd like to keep the topic to the issue of the bylaws as posted on our agenda.
Yes, okay,
And so-
very good. Therefore, if,
But if I may, Mr. President.
Sure.
Your points are very well taken, and subsequently in this, there may be a resolution we're passing to help Jamestown try to resolve some of the outstanding issues.
Right.
Property the Navy may be turning over to them. And certainly that is a wonderland down there, the Melville Park, that whole area going down almost to the water, if not to the water. And I think that we have made great use of it, but I think we could make better use of it. But part of it is we are not going to undertake a brownfield.
Right.
And so we need help. And I think that's where you were going. Is that correct?
yeah, that's absolutely true.
So if you would bring that back on another agenda to
Sure,
talk about that, I
no,
would
be glad to
appreciate it.
put that up.
Can I ask a question about the matter on before us?
Of course, Mr. Levesque.
You are asking that we delete the create an audio or visual recording of all meetings and subsequent to create well, only the accurate minutes of each meeting. Could you explain to me the purpose of that?
Sure. We initially thought through when the town we were filming everything, the PCC, particularly Larry. We were not filming anything, and if there was any interest outside of our actual meeting, and nobody comes to these meetings, except the membership, that somebody might be able to go to the town clerk's office and say, I want to see a copy of the audio or the video that you said you did, according to your bylaws. So this is a minor adjustment. All we're saying is we want that to be there so that our secretary can in fact use that machine, the minutes, the other, however she would like to do it, she at the moment, and create the minutes for the meeting. And then once that's done, that record can then be removed because we will have had created the minutes that would exist in the clerk's office. That's why we did that.
You know, I certainly am not, I'm going to accept your suggestion and personally vote for it. The only thing I would say is that I am on YouTube all the time and I watch a lot of things from Portsmouth where people are talking about things. And sometimes it strikes some interest. I've seen things about Melville. And my purpose in saying that is that I would love to see a lot of these groups, and there's no reason for you to comply with any sort of open meeting law. You cannot make fundamental decisions. You have to bring them to us. Nonetheless, I would love to have the community more aware of what you're doing down there, so they might more freely participate and come up with ideas about better usage. I mean, one of the best things I remember happened, some Boy Scout decided as an Eagle Scout project to do some access issues down there, and it was great. But I don't know really how he learned about it, other than perhaps his troop went down there.
Well, we're just to very briefly talk to that. We have had several Eagle Scout projects over the course of time. And all the scout troops know that we're available. If they've got a person who wants to get an Eagle Scout project, then they can come down to us and ask, have you got something for us to do? We keep a list. So there's always something that we can have an Eagle Scout do to get that accomplished for them. So there are several. So that,
Make sure
that's,
the Girl Scouts know
very-
too.
oh yes, we
They
have
bring-
some benches
they
down
bring
there. We have benches down there that were created by the Girl Scouts,
Okay.
just specifically for us. But, you know, to your point, I 100% agree that we now comply in the sense that we create minutes for every meeting, and they are part, and they go to the clerk's office. But we don't create an audio, and as you know, that's not an easy thing to do. So I agree. It would be nice if everybody could see what we do, but when we get a fully automated, maybe we can do that.
Well, I will
Thank you.
note that your meetings as all committees and boards are open to the public.
Absolutely.
And also subject to the Opens Meeting Act.
And
That's-
they are subject to the Open Meetings Act, to my knowledge.
Yes.
They are, no, we put an
Absolutely.
agenda. We
Yeah,
get-
so even though
like an
you
agenda.
are an advisory body only, the notices of your meetings are posted, and so if you can't watch it on YouTube, you might show up now and again.
We're at the Brown House first Monday of every month. Thank you.
Motion to approve the bylaws as
Second.
Presented.
The amendments as
The
amendments as
yeah.
presented.
we have a motion and a second.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, we have a request to approve a proclamation stating March 5th through 19th, 2023 as Wellness Weeks with Heron.
Motion to approve.
Second. Second.
Is a motion to approve and a second? All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to new business item number 3. We are now in a public hearing. Request approval for a sound variance to the Portsmouth Noise Ordinance by the Narragansett Electric Company for the Aquidneck Island Reliability Project for noise that may be generated by the operation of portable liquefied natural gas equipment at 111 Old Mill Lane, Portsmouth. Good evening.
Good evening. George Watson, outside siding counsel for the Narragansett Electric Company, DBA Rhode Island Energy. We're here tonight to request a continuance of this hearing. Spoken to Mr. Gavin about it. We currently have we've been asked by RIDEM to redesign the site layout. Information about that has been submitted to the Energy Facility Siting Board. So in connection with that redesign, we need to reevaluate the noise that would be, or the sound that would be generated with the revised layout of the equipment. So we're seeking a continuance until we have that nailed down. We have also requested an extension and receive approval, an extension of the deadline for when advisory opinions are due. The Energy Facility Siting Board, I believe the new date is June 5th, 2023. So it's a 2-month extension. Clearly, if things are further delayed by the process with RIDEM, we'll have to reevaluate that extension date.
Mr. Levesque.
I actually have no opposition to your request to continue. I can understand that situation. This is the old director property down off of Old Mill. It once was owned
No.
by. No, it is not.
No, No, it's the old in Narragansett Energy property where the pumping station was, where they currently have
Right on the side as you.
6 or 8. I lost count.
I
There's
just-
6 down there now.
I went by it the other day and you mentioned something about energy facility siding, I think, asking you to reconfigure. It is a very ugly vacate. I realize that's not, if you will, a big legal point, but it seems if I were a neighbor, I might be driving, because I looked at it and said, almost to the point where it's kind of like, did they try to make it ugly? So if you're reconfiguring things, it might help if your neighbors thought you were a good neighbor and started doing that, because I assume we'll have a lot of questions about the issue.
Oh, yeah.
And I do believe on a noise ordinance, we probably have the right to do, protective boundaries or something in order to satisfy the neighbors as to diminishing the noise as much as possible.
Well, actually, since we're here,
We can't get into the issue, so that.
no, we can't get into the issues and since we're asking for a continuance and it hasn't been open, but with me is Brian Kirkwood, who's the head of LNG operations. And also is Jeff Montigny, who's the project manager for this. So we can give you a status update on where things are. And also what has changed with the facility. So one of the other changes that has occurred since we originally submitted the application in April of 2022 is that the last 3 years, the company has been renting equipment at the site. So that's not their owned equipment, it's equipment that they rent to run the operation. What they're proposing to do, and this is public, it's been out there in the EFSB. They're proposing to buy new equipment. And that new equipment is shown to be quieter. We have one such vaporizer there running now that is the quieter, a newer model that's quieter than what's been the past 3 years.
If I may.
You're running the
I
meeting.
would like the sense of the council. That we have a request for a continuance. And I would like to avoid having some limited back and forth, but then there's folks who came here tonight, but we're not going to want to hear them because we're having a continuance. And then we'll have a continuance and then everybody will come back
You
again
made your
and we'll
point.
have the same conversation again.
I move that we continue the matter until, I think you were indicating a 2 month or so delay between, because of the,
No, we're-
Lighting board.
We're hopeful it's not that long. What I would say is we ask for a continuance and then we'll reach out. I'll be in contact with Mr. Gavin. Once we know that we have a settled site layout, then we can come back because we'll have the projections.
Just wanted to note that if there's no date and time certain for the continuance, we'll have to run another ad.
Well, that's
Probably best anyway.
that's fine.
I'll second it for a quick discussion. And since the head of LNG is here, I'll give you my opinion again. It shouldn't be there, period. We need to put another pipeline in,
Right. Well, I mean,
create a loop here on the island.
again, I'll defer to Mr. Castman too. I mean, if you want to just grant the continuance, I mean, we came here just to give an update since we're here out of respect to the town council.
I
But
do appreciate it, that, and that is why I asked for the sense of the council, because if we get a presentation, there will be questions. And this is a hearing. And so are we having a hearing tonight? And then again, another update and then another,
I don't think we can have a hearing based on information we don't have.
right.
And until the redesign is done, I don't think we should.
So I
Right.
don't want to waste folks' time if we're going to be pushing this off.
I'd like to move the issue.
Can I just add a comment? I think we had this discussion about this noise variance back in October, November, when we were talking about, giving authorization for the temporary setup on Old Mill Lane, et cetera, and the agreement was that we were gonna get a noise ordinance sorted out. Here we are, in February. No noise ordinance, everything goes on as usual. I think this is probably like the 4th, 5th year that this is happening. But-
2019 was the big issue. So
Okay, maybe third.
2020,
I think, hopefully we get this issue resolved before you're in front of us again in October or November of this year, asking for permission for next summer again. So, you know, I don't think we'll be very happy if we're at the same position.
I mean, yes, we do anticipate having this resolved well in advance of that event. So it's, right now, we're finishing up the re-engineering so we can have the conversation with Ryden.
We have a motion on the floor for approving the request for a continuance and a second.
Well,
With
really
no
not a
date, right?
continuance, it's just canceling the public hearing and having it at a different date. A continuance, you
We'd have a date.
setting a date
Well,
certain, right?
Continuance without a date certain.
Yeah.
Is the same thing, sure. But that is the motion on the floor.
I'm not sure it's the same motion.
Yeah.
Dismissal.
I think it's just, it's just.
I move that we dismiss based on the fact that, they don't want to go forward at this time and they can resubmit it at a future date.
All right, so first thing we do is pull your first motion.
Yeah.
Rescind your first motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
You only section it for discretion, you're
Right.
being kind of cheesy about it.
so your motion is to dismiss this public hearing and set it for another date in the future.
And I'm withdrawing
I'll
that
second.
motion and making a motion to cancel the public hearing based on the fact that they are not prepared to go forward. Up to
Second.
you if you want to.
We have a motion and a second to cancel the public hearing. Do we have?
It's not,
any
it's
discussion?
canceling this public hearing
This one
specific,
tonight.
not one in
All
the
of them.
future.
Right.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, I wasn't sure if you were, you mentioned withdrawing the application. We're not.
No, we can't, what I'm saying is, we can't say we're gonna continue a public hearing and we don't have a date.
Right.
So basically, it's a whole new public hearing on the application. So it'll
Right.
just be on the new business number or whatever it is, and it'll be a new public hearing.
Okay, no, that's fine. I
It's
mean,
just-
That was the
It's-
guidance from Mr. Gavin, our solicitor.
If we don't have a date, we can't continue it.
right,
So if you came here and said we can do it the first meeting in April, we could say, okay, we'll continue to the first meeting in April, but you don't have a date because you don't know how fast Rydam's gonna work.
right, I mean, I would like to be here in April, but I can't say for sure.
Exactly, so. Even if you said the first week of May, we could do that,
Is there
but
any further
without that.
discussion from the council? Is there any discussion from the members of the public?
Ma'am,
Ma'am, if you
come up here
have,
if you wanna speak.
if you, we technically are still in a public hearing. If you
If you
need
would step
to speak,
aside,
you need
young man,
to come up
let
and
them-
state your name and address. And please bear in mind,
I will.
yes, thank you.
Hi, my name's Steve McDonald. I was here for the hearing. That isn't going to be a hearing, and we don't know when the hearing is going to be. I would ask two things, that you make sure that they set a firm date with DEM, that they're going to get their information. We've been playing games with this group for 3 years now. That's the winter of 2020, 2021, 2022. Now we're into 2023. We're going to go through the whole time without any type of justification of their facility. And I also would ask that you have your police department go down there now on a regular basis, and every time they violate the noise ordinance, give them a ticket, because that's happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, 124 Old Mill Lane.
Thank you. Yep.
Don't run.
Hi,
Plenty of time.
quick, we want to get this done. My name's Liz Drayton. I live at 1116 Wapping Road, and I'm in a butter in the Middletown side of this project. I just want to request that all abutters be given due notice for the next public hearing, because there are more and more people in the neighborhood who really are up in arms about the existence of this facility in our residential neighborhood, period. And there's variances are one thing, but the fact that it exists in this neighborhood is the big issue at hand. So we appreciate getting notified by the mail, so we all know as abutters when the next hearing is going to be. I appreciated knowing about this one. Sorry, it's not happening. Right, thank you.
Any further comment? Anyone else? Sure.
Hey. I did, because I have anxiety attacks, so I'll probably like pass out at some point here. I'm not a speaker, but I'll just let it be known. I am Catherine
We
Hatzberger.
have a doctor here, fire and rescues right over there.
Nice. Hatzberger, Hatzberger, at 148 Old Mill Lane. So I don't sit directly across from,
Can you just point that microphone down at you?
It's directional.
That's
There you go.
it, Pat. Thank you.
yeah,
Mr. McDonald's a little bit taller than you.
I know, I'm shorty, that's Portuguese in me, what can I say? So I don't sit directly across from that wonderful site, beautiful thing that they got going on there, that they thought was gonna make it so nice and, acceptable to the eye. It hasn't. I am the next one over, but I am the first one to have my property dug up by all this stuff that's happening with the new pipeline, whatever. So it's going to go right across my driveway and right through like at least 20 feet from my front door. So there's an interesting aspect, because when that shit blows, when that stuff blows, we're gonna be the first ones. But anyway, when I'm laying in bed at night, I get woken up in the middle of the night with my actual house shaking and vibrating from whatever stuff they got going on over there to pump through their pipes. And all I ask you is spend one night in my bed, not me being there, but just saying, you guys spend one night when this is happening. Now you're going to sit there and say, oh, we're going to push it off till April to have some kind of big forum, whatever, we all get to talk. By then, they're going to be out of there because they go from October to April. Do you understand this? So this has been the last 5 years of my life or 4 years of my life. And let me tell you what, I am the third generation. My grandparents owned this property from the late 1800s. My mother bought it from my grandmother, and I bought a section, unfortunately, with the damn pipeline going through it. When my mother had this, whatever, she was actually suckered into doing it, but she lived on Wapping Road and she had 39 acres all the way down Old Mill Lane. She didn't think at that time, and none of us thought at that time that anything was going to happen like this. In my whole, I ain't even going to tell you how old I am, but in my whole life living in that area, I have never seen anything like this. And my mother would roll over in her grave if she knew that she sold me a property like this to have my house built on. It's all been farmlands. Old Mill Lane is considered to be Old Mill Lane, named after my grandfather's farm called Old Mill Farm. It's been farmlands for years. My husband planted potatoes there. My grandfather grew corn there. We've had cows there. It's been a thing for decades. Why are you going to screw it up with this crap across the street? Just saying. Spend one night in my bed. Now let me know how you feel.
Mr.
Thank you
President,
very much.
I would like to let anybody know in that area, if you have concerns and you believe it is a violation of the noise ordinance, I believe historically anyway, it was a notification to the police department, who would go down with their calibration and determine whether or not it was a violation. My assumption in this was that we knew it was a violation at particular times. Is that correct?
May I comment on that, please?
Sure.
Yes and no. The yes part is the police will come. Don't get me wrong. We have a wonderful police department. The problem is you can't call in advance. Even if you know what time they're going to do their proceeding, if I turn around and make a phone call to the police department and they haven't started, I am now making a false police report. And quite frankly, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to get fined for doing something like that. And when it starts, that's when you have to make the phone call. Now, if the officer is busy, he's not going to be able to make it. And that has traditionally been the problem. Well, it was the problem in 2021 and 2022. The police department made a point this year when they were getting ready to start to come on down and do readings. And I do have those readings, which I was going to give if we were having a presentation, but I'm not giving those readings because I'm not supposed to give them information out in a non-presentation. So they do come. I mean, but the problem is the timing.
No, the young
Thank you.
woman was inviting me into her bed, so.
Yeah, I know. There's nothing I can do about that.
Okay. Oh, she wasn't gonna be there. She made that clear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for your input. Did you want to- Sure, no, not closed yet.
Thank you for your attention, everyone. My name is Mike. I live at 162 Old Mill Lane. Just wanted to come up. Oh, Richardson. I agree and just want to reiterate, everything they said is true. I've been living there for about 12 years now. We've had the easement goes right through our yard, I guess, with the second one from the thing. In those 12 years, I've seen that place grow exponentially, but in a way that seemed nervous to me. I'm still scared, I guess, at night. I smell gas. There's gas leaks. There was one recently, I'm sure someone will speak to it. I even smelt it down by Green End. Excuse me. So aside from my own safety, that's a concern. There's an eyesore factor, but the biggest issue is communication. This is my first hearing here. First time actually having a voice to feel like I could do something. But I take my dog out at night, 1 a.m. They're doing work, smell gas, loud noises. I mean, it's relentless. Now they're coming back in with another, I guess, they're gonna change double the size of the pipe. These are all concerns I have. I don't feel like you guys are actually reaching out. You show up. I'm sorry. I was asked to sign pretty much a waiver that was super vague. I presented it to my lawyer and just giving you even more permission, more access. But I'm not getting the communication I'd like. And at least be open and honest. So right now, I literally drive by there multiple times a day. It looks like a prison to me. There's the aesthetic value, there's the value of my property, and then there's the value of community. How you guys reaching out and how you changing this. And then there's bottom line security. I don't want to die. I'm sure no one here wants to die. Now we have 5+ mobile liquid things. I started doing research. I don't want to know this much about it, but it went from 0 to 1 to 3 to 5. What happens when something goes? I drive by that road. I see empty cans on the side of the road. Someone's drinking and driving. What's going to stop them? You put up a big wall now, but what happened years ago? No offense, you kind of have, I wish we had our police there all the time because you kind of have a rent-a-cop who clearly is disengaged. So staffing, communication, and please, it's a residential community. I moved out there to raise a family. I'm a small business owner trying to create jobs. I just feel like you're crushing me. That's what I have to say. Thank you for your time. I hope you guys can
Thank
fit
you.
this.
I think, yes, I think we have heard that there's a fair amount of frustration in the room from council members and from members of the public. I hope that the applicants hear that and understand that patience may not last forever. And with that, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to new business number 4, Quinnipiac Island Regional Resilience Update. you could just wait a moment while, folks who came for the hearing. Oh, did we need a vote to close the hearing?
Yeah, it
We
was.
can't, okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, council members, for having us here today. My name is Kimberly Coriath. I'm the Stormwater and Resilience Analyst at Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. And here with me today are Paige Myatt, Quinnipiac Island Regional Resilience Coordinator, who you'll be hearing from just shortly, as well as Bill Fazioli, our Managing Director of Business and Programmatic Development. Before we leap in with Paige providing a bit of a background on her resilience updates to date, as well as Portsmouth's resilience efforts at the moment, we'll be providing a brief introduction on the overview to the bank and some of the background of the municipal resilience program that led to some of the work that we're currently conducting. Thank you. Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank is a quasi-public organization. We initially were established as the Clean Water Finance Agency back in the 70s. At that time, kind of our bread and butter programmatic development was focused on the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, as well as the Drinking Water State Revolving Funds. And in the past 7 years, our programmatic elements have grown tremendously. We've incorporated programs on clean energy, brownfields, stormwater, climate resilience, a number of which you can see listed on the slide that you see above you here. And I want to focus in on these climate resilience elements. And if we can, thank you for jumping to the next slide. Perfect. Beyond the programs that the bank offers, the bank has played a larger role in statewide resilience to date. In previous years, back in 2018, the bank's Director of Stormwater and Resilience, Sean O'Rourke, who also served as the state's Chief Resilience Officer, led the creation of Resilient ROADI, the state's first climate resilience action strategy. And as part of that strategy, 61 key goals were developed, focusing around intergovernmental efforts where the state and local municipalities could collaborate further on resilience actions to move statewide resilience forward, as well as local municipalities being able to collaborate together on resilience actions to move our climate resilience forward. One main item that came out of the Resilient ROADI strategy was the need to focus on prioritization of local climate resilience actions. And it's essentially provides support for that prioritization. And that's essentially how the Municipal Resilience Program was born at the Infrastructure Bank. The Municipal Resilience Program consists of 3 key elements, 3 key arts, and you can see some of this listed on the slide here: the identification, prioritization, and building of a project pipeline. This is accomplished through the Municipal Resilience Program through a resilience workshop, MRP action grants, and through an ongoing project pipeline that the bank facilitates, connecting municipalities with additional climate resilience funding sources. And Portsmouth, of course, joined the program in 2019, completing its workshop at that point, and continues to do great climate resilience work, which Paige will be jumping into in just a moment here. But one item that we have heard across MRP workshops across the state, but particularly on Aquidneck Island, is this need for additional regional collaboration, wanting to work with partner municipalities on additional climate resilience efforts. As we know that issues like flooding don't necessarily know municipal boundaries. So this is something that the bank has worked to facilitate through launching our first regional resilience coordinator position, focused right here on Aquidneck Island. And now I will hand it over to Paige, who has been working to move these efforts forward and working to complete an Aquidneck Island regional resilience update, which she'll be sharing with you today. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and provide you with an update on this topic. To date, go to the next slide. I just want to say I'm going to be approaching this presentation with a regional focus, but then zoning in on some Portsmouth efforts as we're here tonight. But I do want to mention that we're here on an island and the issues that we face are very regional. And so with that in mind, I will say that there has been some awesome groundwork laid by many efforts that come before myself here in this position, including the MRP workshops completed in both Newport, Portsmouth and Middletown, the EPA's Southeast New England program, which I'll refer to as SNEP, and their technical assistance, hazard mitigation plans, the Aquinic Island Planning Commission's Island Waters Project, and many more. So I've been using all of the materials that have come before me to really try and build a coordinated effort across the island. Just a quick update on some things that have been put into place to date. In Portsmouth, you have completed 2 action grants and more are in progress or upcoming. And that includes the Common Fence Point flood mitigation efforts, which are pictured to the left. It was Stormwater Inland Flooding Climate Adaptation at Common Fence Point was the name of the project, as some of you may know. It included recontouring and installing stormwater best management practices, rehabilitating catch basins, installing rain gardens, and restoring existing wetlands. So that's just one example of the work that we're talking about here tonight. The Melville Dam has also been rehabilitated, and then upcoming work includes the Founder's Brook dredging and Riverside Street stormwater injection. In Newport, there's been some action grants that are in progress as well, including Almy Pond restoration via pavement removal at the Spouting Rock Drive location, as well as a Pine Street end of road retrofit to reduce stormwater runoff. In Middletown, they have been working with SNEP mainly, and will be working with us upcoming, but they have had designed flooding solutions for the Maidford River. So there's a lot of common themes here that we'll get into. And if you go to the next slide, I'll dive a little bit deeper into the Portsmouth MRP action updates. So in 2019, when you completed your MRP workshop, there was a list of over 100 resilience actions that the town was looking to potentially take. And so with that being done in 2019, and I was brought on here just not even a year ago in April 2022, I've been working very closely with Leah Hitchin, Aaron Lindo, and Ray Perry to really get a sense of where these projects stand, where these actions stand, what's been completed, what's in progress, what's ongoing, and what I can help push forward. And so you can see here that there's been a lot of great progress to date. You can see that almost 80% of your actions have either been completed, they're ongoing, which means that there's just continual work on them, or they're in progress. So I commend you guys for really, stepping forward and setting a great example and moving a lot of this forward. An example of some completed projects are the drainage and flooding issues at Common Fence Point, like I mentioned, the rehab of the Melville Dam. Projects in progress include continuing to advance green infrastructure projects that have been identified in some of these reports that I've mentioned. And then a lot of ongoing emergency management and preparedness improvements, thanks to Ray Perry, who's done a fantastic job in leading a lot of those efforts. Next slide, please. So now I'll jump into some regional themes and areas of interest. As I mentioned, there's no boundaries for the water that we see here when it comes to stormwater. We share a lot of resources. There's a huge benefit to working together. And so I just wanted to highlight that a lot of the issues and areas that these projects take place in are common across the island. So you can see on the right that they're the kind of the top 3 areas that we're really looking at beyond just general climate resilience issues are emergency management and preparedness, stormwater management, and transportation. And those are common across the entire region. So that's where we're really focusing a lot of our efforts. And you can see on the left the regional action types. There's a wide variety of different types of actions that we've been looking at. So we're taking a really holistic approach to, implement policies or plans, studies, construction, design, outreach, and engagement, really taking a look at all of the aspects that need to come together to make these projects happen. Next slide, please. And so here are some examples of projects and themes and areas of interest by municipality. You'll be able to see where we overlap in a lot of areas. And here in Portsmouth, the storm drains in Island Park, coordinated disaster response and recovery are some key areas that we're focusing in on. In Newport, there's the North End, the Prescott Farm neighborhood flooding and stormwater mitigation, and an interest in pre-disaster planning and post-disaster rebuild guidelines. In Middletown, the Maidford River restoration is of interest, as well as the Atlantic Beach District resilience. So you can you can really see that there's a lot of commonalities here, and we're looking for ways to move those forward together to a benefit to everyone.
Can I just ask a quick- Of course. I agree with you, a lot of commonality. What are the areas that we could be acting together on? I'm just curious about that. I
Yeah,
mean, an Almy Pond problem is not the same as an Island Park drainage problem, and they are quite distant.
correct. So there is a lot of commonalities in terms of the benefits that will be received by these projects, and I'll get into that in some of the upcoming slides if I can address it. No worries. Yeah, no, thank you. I'll get back to it. Please remind me. So resilience efforts in progress and upcoming. This is a graph of regionally kind of where everyone's projects stand. So there's, like I said, there's been a lot of good work to date. And I've been using the previous efforts to springboard and inform some upcoming and future work. The SNEP technical assistance has been awarded to all 3 municipalities at this point. And so that is able to provide some deeper understanding in project areas and order of magnitude cost estimates. Portsmouth has gone through that process and developed a great list that we can move forward on. And working with the municipal leadership from the planning departments, we've submitted a FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant for a regional hazard mitigation plan. And this will really help align everyone and be a baseline for future projects moving forward. And we're also working on compiling and bundling island-wide MRP actions to apply to funding as a region. Next slide, please. So with there's a lot of upcoming funding opportunities that we have in front of us to move these projects forward. And this is where I think I'll address some of your concerns of, how do we work together as a region and gain benefit for everyone. As Kim said, the water on this island knows no municipal boundaries. A flooding problem in Newport maybe has roots in Middletown, or a flooding problem in Portsmouth maybe has, there's watersheds that cross these municipal boundaries. And one of the things that is important to note with these MRP action grants that will be, the RFP will be released this spring, is that there is potential to bundle these projects based on common outcomes. So if your outcome in Newport and Middletown and Portsmouth is to reduce flooding, for example, it almost doesn't matter what the project upstream is, as long as that project receives the same benefit across the municipalities. There's lots of room to be creative and work together. I'm gonna really look at these issues from a watershed scale. Like I said, there's an emphasis on bundling projects of similar size with similar outcomes and benefits. These grants do have a match component of 25%. 12.5%, half of it must be in-kind staff time, and then 12.5% must be cash match. And so if you work together with 2 other municipalities and you divide that 12.5% by three municipalities, your cash match is down to around 4%. So there's a huge economic incentive to work together and find these projects and areas of interest to everyone. And it also allows regional collaboration, also allow for grant administration, reporting and tasks, and allows for existing capacity to go farther. So instead of each municipality working on a stormwater project and having to find the cash and find the resources to report on grants, you can bundle it into one and really reduce that time and resource drain on each municipality, and gain very similar outcomes across the projects. There's also other financing opportunities that Kim mentioned through the infrastructure bank that can provide additional support, and lots of other opportunities upcoming through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So with that, I will just mention some next steps. Like I mentioned, the MRP action grants will be released this spring. And those are something that I'm working closely with the planning departments across all municipalities to find those commonalities and put forward a bundled regional application that should be very strong. As well as we've been working with the SNEP technical assistance. With Middletown currently is undergoing their iteration of that technical assistance that I mentioned. Portsmouth and Newport have already gone through. And as part of this component being the 3rd municipality to go through this program with SNEP, we've incorporated an island-wide leadership exchange component. And more information will be upcoming on this, but we're really looking to gather leadership from all 3 municipalities on those 3 key topics that have the most regional interest including stormwater and water quality, emergency management and preparedness, as well as transportation. So be on the lookout for those opportunities that we can further delve into these topics and come together as a region and really make a difference that benefits everyone. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Levesque?
No, I apologize for this, if this is something that the other members of the council are familiar with, but I'm new here.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned both an in-kind and a financial contribution. You may have heard earlier, we are about to go into our budget planning.
Mhm.
And we would need, if we were going to make a financial commitment, some sort of idea what type of commitment you would want, either as an individual entity or in concert with the other island community. I assume they're all going through the same thing too. They would be putting their budget to bed sometime in May.
Mhm.
So when do you anticipate you will have your next step plan for what you would be seeking us to participate in?
So that's really up to the municipality. I'm here as a facilitator to help identify some of these projects, and Leah and the planning department can speak to the coordination that I've been able to bring to the table. So this is the first of our resilience updates to town councils across the island. So we'll be visiting Middletown and Newport as well to brief them on a very similar update. And on the back end, I've been working with the planning departments to come together and put forward an application or to bundle these projects that we've been talking about that will align hopefully with the budget cycle so that you will know what those projects look like, what we're applying for in funding, and what your cash match might look like.
Okay, so maybe I had it backward. We come forward with some ideas that we have of necessity that you might be in your bailiwick, and you give us technical assistance and perhaps financing.
Correct.
Any other comment? Thank you very much. Moving on to new business item number 5, Jamestown Town Council requests support of resolutions for South Gould Island Public Recreation Plan. Mr. Hamilton.
Mr. President, I believe this was an item I requested be removed from the consent calendar. And I just wanted to put it on and ask the members, I don't believe there's anybody from Jamestown here. If you are, the bridge is about to close. But essentially, they are looking at Gould Island, which is, I guess, being surplus by the federal government, and looking for some assistance from other bay communities to see if we can join together to ask them to clean it up, to make it more prepared for town takeover. And they actually have, I guess, a fairly elaborate plan. I don't believe we're tying into anything really other than just saying we support the idea of the community getting together. We still have some maybe land that may or may not come our way. So anyway, I believe that our clerk has prepared a resolution. I reviewed it and it looked to me like it is exactly what we have been requested to do. Might be a little shorter.
That's fine.
But if the council has reviewed the resolution, I would like to move that we approve the resolution and forward it as it is indicated.
We have a motion on the table.
Second,
We have a
and
motion
it's,
and a second.
it's just for them to hopefully accept Gould Island as a recreational area and keep it away from a corporate area.
Mm,
That's all.
Developed, yeah.
That's their plan, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
They get a park just like the south end of Prudence Island.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Levesque. Moving on to number 6, request approval of resolution regarding the restoration of general revenue sharing to cities and towns.
That would be me. Yes, sir. This just goes on the top of the legislative priorities that we put forth back in January. I put this together as a resolution so that we could forward it off to every city and town so that they could hopefully address that with their legislators, so that we have hopefully a little bit more oomph at the state legislature as they begin their budget to hopefully return some state revenue sharing to the towns that were taken away back in 2009 to help relieve our property taxpayers with some of the burden that is upcoming. So I ask for passage and forward to the cities and towns.
I move that we accept the resolution as presented.
That's a motion.
That is a
And
motion.
there's a
Second.
second. Any discussion? I have a question. And I support the idea. My only thought about it is our current representatives and senators at the General Assembly were not there in 2009. I'm not sure that they will know what this pertains to, that revenue sharing. If there was something specific that I don't, candidly, I served here, not then, I was before that, but there was revenue sharing. But we just saw that as a line item, that this was revenue sharing, and I don't know if that was pursuant to some state law that was in place or just Department of Administration that
It was,
way of doing business.
it was just something that was a line item in the budget.
Yeah,
And it was in 2009 when the market collapsed and money got very scarce at that point in time. It was a low hanging fruit to cut out.
so we still do get funding from the state. and they
We
refer
only
to it
get
as-
pass-through funding. So we get pass-through funding as in meals tax, hotel tax. We don't get any direct revenue sharing. When you look at a state like
That's true,
Massachusetts,
no revenue sharing.
that's
We get-
all, that's
we
what
get-
this
we get
resolution is.
We get school funding, but that's not revenue sharing
We-
either, really. per se.
We get
It's-
very little school
Yeah,
funding. If you
right.
read Mr. McGaw's article, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's-
and I will go back to, my statement about that is, you look at Central Falls where they get $50 million a year from the state. We get free. They're 100% state funded. When Socket gets $81 million a year. And does not pay a lot out of their own pockets. So it's just,
Okay, I don't, I don't want to get into discussion about the school funding formula, because I think we have already indicated
Hari,
we
I
have a
wrote something.
disagreement about that. The general revenue sharing was by a formula which at the meeting that we had with all the legislators, I indicated, in order for Portsmouth to get anything, a line item in the budget 100 or at least 1,000 times more than the amount we would get had to be put in almost any form of equitable distribution. So if they're gonna do it, we should get our share. And I have no problem with saying that. Okay, and obviously we could use it. I won't deny that. But in all likelihood, we are not going to see very much, if any, from
if the
this item.
let's take the $610 million. That's theoretically a surplus this year.
I prefer using the term reserve.
Okay, it's a $610 million surplus this year, but if they just took 100 million of that, 1/6 of that entire thing, and then split it up however equitably you want, there's 39 cities and towns. If we got $500,000, I bet there's a guy to my left that would sleep a little bit easier with an extra $500,000 to play with in a budget. If that went across to every city
Was that
in town,
Kevin or was that the administrator?
Kevin sleeps fine. That would be the administrator. I think every city in town and every single property taxpayer in the state would like to see money come back to their own pockets. Massachusetts took $500 per taxpayer and sent them a check. Rhode Island tweaked around the edges and gave it to mostly people, probably well-deserving, who have children. Had a child tax credit. We should be looking at a statewide plan to help the property taxpayers. Governor Raimondo, when she was first in office, said she was going to develop a plan to help the property taxpayers. That never happened. I think the state legislature this year has a one-time opportunity in order to put this into the budget. And once it's in the budget, it's just recurring.
I remember having back in 04 through 08, there was revenue sharing. And our thoughts back then were, well, the revenue comes largely from taxpayers all across the state. We should share in our fair share. of
Well,
that
you know,
revenue.
if you want to get into this conversation, I will get into it. One, sales and income tax. By and large, all of the communities you're talking about and the percentage of their income for sales tax is much larger in Woonsocket.
I'm still just, but I'm
and
talking
anywhere
about,
else.
I'm talking about Portsmouth taxpayers and getting back some fair share, whatever fair means.
You know, we don't live on an island. Oh, yes, we do live on an island,
Right.
don't we? But most of us make our money elsewhere. We do not make our money on this island. We have moved away from what we consider the problems to come here and not have to deal with those economically. So understand, whatever community you have, they're gonna divvy up whatever resources they have as they feel are most fair. And that may not be that, you know, they say, oh, the town of Portsmouth really needs our help. No, that's not the way it's gonna look. Now, if it's gonna be distributed in a fair fashion, this is not offensive to me in any fashion. Some of the ideas behind it might be, but this is not offensive to me in any fashion, and I will support it.
Just rough numbers. Actually, they're not rough. I'll give you the actual numbers from budget documents. In 2005 and 6, it was $680,000.
Yeah.
In general revenue sharing. The following year was 654. The following year after that, 654 again. And then it was 546. I'm rounding down here.
Do you have a motor vehicle?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The motor vehicle relief tax, or the getting rid of it as a property tax, supplemented, paid for now by the state, was property tax relief. It is costing way more than that amount. I voted against it when I was in the legislature because I knew the out years were going to be one of the most expensive items we had on our budget. Okay, which was going to be paying the community. And by the way, sooner or later, they'll probably stop paying the community. I was also there when they had a great idea for making sure that we relieve the property tax 5.5, I think it was called, and the state was going to take 60% of the educational obligation. Never happened.
Right.
I don't disagree with you that the state makes a lot of promises and doesn't do things properly.
We all do.
But
We all do.
I don't know about that.
let's just
We have a.
put
motion.
forth a resolution
Yes.
that
I
ask
didn't
them to
wanna
help
go
the property
beyond it.
taxpayers.
But if I'm pushed, I push back.
Don't see anybody being pushed, but okay. I see a motion on the table in a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Capron?
Aye. Moving on to new business. Number 7, town council review and approval of civic support requests.
Mr. Vice President.
No,
Did not.
We typically
Okay.
kind of go line by line.
line by line,
Oh,
figure out.
okay.
So,
Wow.
when, my assistant originally put this together, the Portsmouth Island Volunteer Fire Department, budget had not been. I said Portsmouth Island. You said we all live on an island.
Yeah, yeah.
The
We all live on
Prudence
separate
Island
islands.
Volunteer Fire Department,
They really
budget.
live on an
They
I
do.
know. I'm tired.
their own part of
Um,
Idaho.
Had not been submitted to her when she had put this together. However, it had been submitted to the town. So that has been rectified. So you see in the correction and what's on the screen, the correct budget request from Prudence Island Volunteer Fire Department. Additionally, you'll also see, home is not seeing the screen. Additionally, you'll see that Four Hearts Foundation, this is the organization that is looking to rebuild Turnpike Playground. Originally, when you granted them $3,000 last year, that was captured in the town council budget. They are a private organization. We have put them into for this year into the civic support line. It's easier to account for here. Should you choose to approve civic support for them. So what you see before you is the accurate list of requests that we have received for fiscal year 24. What we're looking for, as we look for every year, is your guidance. What is it you want to approve tonight? What is it that you want further discussion on? essentially, where are my left and right boundaries? This is a significant budget item. It's $1 million that we do have to fold into the budget. And it's easier for me to craft the budget and submit it to you by March 31st if I can get some of these big ticket items, i.e. civic support, within a left and right boundary lane prior to trying to iron this out on one evening in April.
Yeah.
Mr. President, can I take a stab at a few of these?
In a moment, I just wanted to state, it's $1 million roughly. The much lion's share of that is the first, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 items. I mean, so the public library, which is a matter of, my opinion, community. One of the reasons people like living here is because we have access to things like the Portsmouth Public Library, the fire department, Prudence, which is a matter of public safety, the Historical Society, the Senior Center, which is asking for level funding. I'm anticipating we'll likely, I'm not speaking for anyone but myself, but I'm anticipating we'll likely fund those requests. The challenge I have with looking at this is that you're looking for guardrails, Mr. Rayner, but we don't know the rest of the budget. So it's hard for us, we're sort
Well,
of
it's,
examining this in a vacuum.
nobody knows what the
Right,
budget is right now.
right.
But I can tell you, as I relayed to you in January, we're looking at historic inflation.
Right.
We are having a very difficult time retaining personnel. We are looking at folding in the 8 safer firefighter, the grant firefighters. They will have to be paid for out of the general fund from March through the end of June next year. So we'll have to fold them in. And we're looking at a significant bond payment that is due. So I know that everybody would like a 0% tax increase. That's not going to happen. We are going to have to, as closely as we can, stay within where we have been historically, but we're looking at probably a 1.2, or I'm sorry, about a 1.5 to $2 million increase in spending next year. So that equates to getting fairly close to the cap. We're still working on this. So could we do this and stay within the cap? Sure, anything is possible, but the more you cut it, the easier it is. What I would suggest, the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition, they did request almost level funding, a 0.86% increase. We did receive, and we have received significant funds from the opioid lawsuits that have been going on. So we do have a special restricted fund set aside for that. And this is perfectly within the guidelines of what you can spend that money on. So I would suggest that we zero that out, continue to fund the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition, but fund that $31,969 request from the opioid funds.
I just want to be clear, remove it from civic support, but reflect.
I would keep it,
elsewhere
I
in
would
the-
keep a line of zero in civic support, zero it out, because in the out years, when that money runs out,
I see.
you're gonna want to put it back in the
But
general
that,
fund.
but that will be then reflected in another portion of the budget.
It'll come out of, it won't come out of the general fund. It will
Right.
come out of a restricted fund or special revenue.
How much money is specifically in that fund for us to use?
Mr. President, can I? And maybe this is what you were going at. As far as what I see the proposed change here, other than the Prudence Island Fire Department, which has asked for a significant change, the Portsmouth Street Library with only $13,000. And if my recollection is good, usually there is almost a great, the libraries, I say this for the benefit of the council, have continually gotten support from the state legislature, and almost all of them get some compensation for their existence. So if you go down to the bottom, there's roughly about $30,000 worth of new funding. Now, I always bring up the history, and I will tell you the history of the Portsmouth government is that back when we had a town meeting, not the ones that Mr. Fitzmaurice set up, but the ones that were genuine.
Mhm.
When we actually had a town meeting every year, there were grant items exactly like these,
Mhm.
and they always got passed. Regardless of bad times, good times, no times, whatever. I'm not really saying that you, Mr. Administrator, you will take our guidance, I know that, and do what you can with it. I would like to suggest to all of my council members. One, the Four House Foundation, I think that's Pacelli. Guy Pacelli was on this council, a grandfather, I think, of one of the other one, I think, of the Chappelle, when they first did the Turnpike Ave playground. I was here when it was being done 30, 40, 50 years ago. The Battle of Rhode Island Association, we have in fact one of the oldest earthworks of a Revolutionary War battle in this town, which we have ignored by and large. Matter of fact, Mr. Gavin might remember this. When we were running for office, somebody asked him about it. Okay, and Mr. Gavin was at something of a loss, and I might have even been at something of a loss because, and maybe you will remember this, Mr. Gleason, when we went to school, it was where you went to have a fight after school if you would knock somebody's milk off their hand.
I'm thinking of Billy
But it is
Gleason.
an amazing thing. East Bay Community Act, and I'll stop there, but I also just wanted to mention a plug. Portsmouth Free Public Library is still Mike Mello.
Mm.
If somebody has contributed more to this community than Mike Mello, I don't know who it is. He has run that, he used to do the East Bay Collaborative. The library has a room in his name, but I think that is Thor compensation. But I would just suggest that the roughly $30,000 increase, other than prudent, which I assume is justified in the administrator's mind, the 30,000 increase, I would say I have absolutely no problem.
No, I
with
see,
that.
I see a
These-
pushback.
Yeah, maybe that's a misnomer on the,
It's
the-
80.
this is what the organizations have requested. I'm not making any proposal.
I realize that actually Mr.
Okay.
Thayer used to, back in the day, used to do the same thing. It was a grant entirely up for the council. And I agree with that principle, by the way, Mr. Administrator. I, as a council member, believe that we ought to give the administrator direction that all of these are appropriate.
Mr.
I would
Hamilton,
make that as a motion,
there's a motion to,
approve all of them for the time being. until
so
we
when
get
you
into
say
the
all of
budget.
them, you mean each organization's proposed amount?
The
Yes.
total of $1,027,601.
Correct, sir.
That is a motion. Is there a second?
Are we gonna discuss this? So seconded for discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss them.
Yes, I would like to discuss all of them.
Mr. Hamilton,
Library, no problem whatsoever, $13,280. Library does a fantastic job. The $35,000 increase that showed up is for capital equipment items, which I would think would fit into the capital improvement, public safety capital improvement program that we have with the fire and police department. So why
you're
can't we
referring to the
fund that
prudence-
out of
you're
that?
Referring to the prudence.
Prudence, yes. Can we use? I don't know what they're specifically asking for capital.
Yeah.
They have a vehicle on water that was already budgeted to match in last year's regular district budget.
Right, so we can use the $35,000 and take it out of the capital, public safety capital improvement funds, rather than using it as civic support funds.
Are you referring to the public safety capital?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, if we take more, yeah, take another thing out of that. keeping,
When we did that, I mean, we presented a pretty much a 20-year plan. So if we're gonna fold the volunteer fire department capital needs into the plan that was approved, we're gonna have to rewicker that whole cost share. And that will affect the revenue on the town side because we keep a percentage of the ambulance fees as revenue for our general fund. So it's just, we need to be careful there.
Do we know what the $35,000 capital request is for?
Yes.
$20,000 for temporary top wash. I know they have a lot of vehicles, more than they can fit in the bins. And they're also asking for $15,000 for a pump rehab and electronics upgrade. I just saw this today for the first time. I haven't had a chance to talk with them, but I don't know what they're looking at for that $15,000 because I requested $150,000 for a pump rehab. So I don't know what their goal is with that.
All right. I'll leave that one alone for a minute. As far as the other things, using the opioid money for the only concern I have is that in 4, 5, 6 years, when that money runs out, we're gonna have a $35,000 hole in the budget we have to patch. I'm okay with doing it this year because it's gonna be a really tight year. As far as Clean Ocean Access is a great organization. I spend a lot of days walking the beach, picking up trash. I don't think we can afford to give them $1,000, unfortunately. That goes the same for the Easton Conservation District. We gave a good little bump last year to mental health. Hopefully mental health is getting a little bit better, although it's a small ask. Arts Guild, arts is the always ones that gets really beat up pretty good, but I don't think we can, certainly can't afford an $8,500 increase to the Arts Guild. And East Bay Community Action, I can't see us doing $3,500, but I could see us doing a $500 upgrade to them. I think for the Four Arts Foundation, I think it's a fantastic organization and they've done one heck of a job raising money. I think they're almost up to $500,000 already. But my question would be to Mr. Woodhead. Part of them building the new facility is going to be tearing down the old facility. Can we do some of that work in kind to make up this $20,000? And can we take the equipment that's there and move it someplace else in town?
All right, so to answer the first question, we are working with the Four Hearts Foundation. We're coming up, we have another meeting with them in 2 weeks to go over all the planning and stuff. We're still trying to work out the location, who's gonna be responsible for what. So we're still working on that. To remove the equipment, we ran into this problem on Island Park Playground. By the time you remove the equipment, you're gonna damage the equipment. So it's really not cost effective for us to remove the equipment and place it somewhere else because they all have concrete slabs on them. So by the time you pull them up, you're gonna damage the equipment. And that's what we came up with playground people too. They said it's not worth it, especially with the year of the equipment. So,
Yeah, I think it's a safety concern too with playground equipment, like after at a certain age, trying to move it. My comment to that is that even if we were to apply for grants ourselves to fund a playground replacement, our match would be more than what they're asking for.
Oh, no, I don't disagree with that, but they are gonna need, if we can make up the $20,000 by doing some of the pre-work and take it off the top of their budget, it's money that we're spending anyways for our employees. It's just reallocating their time, unfortunately.
Yeah, because
From other
we've already talked to them. We're gonna do all the unloading when they purchase the equipment. That's gonna save money for unloading the equipment off of their trucks to store right there, maybe some construction fence in front, so when we close down the facility, no one can come into the facility. Remove the equipment, that's not a big deal. There's only 3 pieces of equipment there, so I don't think that's a big deal either to remove the equipment. The biggest part is the excavation of the property. I mean, it's 100 by 110 piece of excavation that you're gonna wanna do. You have to remove it, bring all the crushed stone in, level it, and then so it gets very expensive.
And you've already taken down 2 trees.
Well, those were hazards, but yeah, we did take down 2 trees. There's a few more that have to come down there too.
Yeah.
But we are working with them.
And like I said, I'm all for the playground. I'm also all for keeping our taxes as low as possible. And
Why didn't you go after the Meals on Wheels?
because Meals on Wheels and Dr. Martin Luther King Center are actually helping feed our residents.
And you don't think the mental health is helping our residents?
I do think mental health is helping our residents. That's why I asked for an upgrade of that last year.
I mean, Mr. Hamilton, I don't know, other than the $35,000, I'm not sure I would have a recommendation for the administrator. I believe that at one point or at least, money from the Melville Fund, and I don't know if the Melville Fund person is still here. Melville Fund was limited to expenditures on recreation and
Still is.
other type items.
Right.
And it used to run a surplus, I'm sorry, the campground.
Correct.
And it would always run a surplus, but we would normally plow the money back into the campground. But it was making significant amounts of money that we at one point in the budget started redirecting to other recreational items in the town, which the Navy rules when they gave us the property allowed. So that I do see for future consideration, not pleased to respond to now, that some of these items of recreation might be moved into being paid for by the Melville as opposed to putting it into their reserve. And I might be wrong. They may no longer have a reserve. I don't know. Okay. I mean, it used to go
It's-
great guns.
It's a completely different organization now, quite literally and figuratively. It's a concessionaire agreement that we have with the person operating. He's investing his own
they
money.
pay?
into the park. Pardon?
Do they pay us any money?
We get a cost share from them, so we get, that goes into the general fund. We're looking at, I think about $600,000 this year, but that goes into the general fund as revenue. And you'll see that when we do the budget brief in April.
I don't want to let any cat out of the bag, but a tradition, historically, the property at Melville could not gain any income that wasn't used within the town for recreation. However, we probably do enough in the recreation area that we're okay. But just putting it in a general fund, it was more or less a restricted receipt type of account. Again, I apologize. Okay, I hear you, Keith, Councilman, but as far as I can see, I don't see any reason, these are a relative, I mean, you mentioned the Four Hearts Foundation. Heck, you know, they're creating or they're recreating a playground.
I understand it. I'm not arguing with the Four Hearts Foundation. I'm looking for a way to fund that money in another way other than cash. As we look at that 85,000.
It sounds actually like we're doing a lot of in-kind already.
Right, so I want to see if that helps and if that,
That could be a conversation you might have if that helps at all with the public works.
just
Up to you. Because
specifically
we're just kind of giving preliminary approval right now.
for
That's
just,
correct.
just general guidelines. $85,000 in cash is roughly 2.5 to 3 cents on the tax roll.
So for an average homeowner I used to be able to do the math.
I could do the math for you, but it's not the average homeowner and it's 3 cents this year. It's 3 cents next year. It's 3 cents the year after that. If you're
The
sensing a
outlier.
theme in my items here, it's trying to take and help out the taxpayer here in Portsmouth.
The future is the future, Councilman. And we're going to have to pay and what you always want to do is you pay the bill with inflated dollars. Next year, the 3 cents will only be worth 1 cent, and so we will save the money.
Just want to make a correction, Mr. Vice President. I said 600,000, it's $100,000 revenue from the
Thank you.
campground.
Mr. Hamilton has already taken and put in somewhere in the budget. I appreciate your desire, Mr. Hamilton. I just don't see this as the area that we can create, and I may not find other areas to create economies. Not my nature.
So here's where we are. We have a motion and a second to fund the requests as presented. I've heard no other motion.
No, I just made suggestions.
Okay.
I'll vote against that, but my suggestions would be to make some adjustments to these numbers. I'll make a motion to specifically do those things. We could do it now, or we could do it during the budget season. I think now helps our administrator and his staff to be able to better write a budget. So if we're,
And Mr. Hamilton, when we do that, they'll all be here to tell us why we shouldn't. And they're
No.
not here today.
they should have been here tonight to this, I
No,
can see some of them
they
back
won't.
there. Or I can see Prudence Island is here. Chief Blount is online. He can explain what his increases are. I could see the Rhode Island,
Up to you.
Battle of Rhode Island
Up to
Association.
you. I
here.
will vote against any amendment to change these numbers.
Mr. President, Vice
Mr.
President.
Gleason.
The only request that I have, I will not support the motion as on the floor. But I need to at least break out the Portsmouth Historical Society because I need to recuse myself from those particular dollars. So if you want to do all of them and vote on that one separately.
Well, that'll come when we actually do the budget. Oh, does he have to recuse tonight?
No.
That's right. Yeah, we're just giving guidelines tonight. We're not actually voting on the specific dollar amount. I think you'll have to do that during the budget.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I think.
So these
I
are,
understand where
these
you're coming
are
from. there.
fictitious numbers at this point.
Well, they're guidance.
Guidance.
Mr. Ryan,
Microphone.
Dr. Ryan.
Mr. Mayor. If we're, considering these amounts, how could we phrase this to be of maximum utility for you in shaping the budget? Because that's what this is all about.
In years past, you gave me a percentage. Whatever numbers, whether you take a vote tonight or not. These will be the numbers. If you don't change them tonight, these are going to be the numbers that I'm going to put into the proposed budget. And then what I'm trying to avoid and what we tried to avoid in years past is getting into a big discussion in April and trying to rework the budget and then get it all ready for you the next night. If we can nail down these, this is a significant part of the budget. So just keep in mind, if you don't change the numbers, this is what I'm going to put in the budget. And this is what I put into the budget will have an effect, a ripple effect throughout the entire budget, and that will affect the levy and the tax rate. That's all we're doing.
Yep, okay.
So I need to present to you the most accurate budget I can at the end of March.
We're requesting or have requested in the past and have requested this year that our department stay at 2%. I can't see giving a civic organization a 566% increase. If we want to look at this budget and you want to meet somewhere halfway, change the motion to level it at $1 million. That gives an extra $27,000. It's still not where I want to be. It's too much money off of the taxpayers. I mean, we had another request for another $20,000 just last week after this went out. It doesn't stop. And we need to have a fiduciary responsibility as town council members for our taxpayers.
Mr. Hamilton, you have only indicated you do not wish to increase the budget as much as they have. You will recognize the value of each of these organizations, which fundamentally are community organizations, taking up obligation, which I would believe would otherwise be the town's obligation. I would mention specifically the library. Do you believe that the town could run the library better? And don't tell me, oh, I'm not affecting them. They are a community organization made up largely by volunteers, by people who do not take excessive salary. All of these organizations are the same. They are community organizations that provide multiple benefits over their request for this community. And they do it on a voluntary basis. I can appreciate the concerns of the administrator. That's his job. Our job is to do what's best for this community. And I believe the community needs each of these.
I didn't say we didn't need some of these. I said that they don't need as much and the taxpayers deserve our support.
That's a slippery slope. Meals on Wheels, maybe they could have just cut off a few of those people because they're eating too much.
Nope.
You could always say they need less. And I could tell you they need more because they do. Mental health, it's a crisis in this country, a crisis. They need more money. They're not asking for that much. The library could expand its services. It used to be open almost all the time. It is closed a lot now. All of these could use more money. And I will now, with respect to my council colleagues, shut up.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque.
You're welcome, Mr. President.
I would just like to make an observation for my fellow council members on the item of the blanking on my head here, I'm sorry, the Prevention Coalition. and the fact that money is coming from the opioid settlement money, I just want to express that I greatly appreciate that money. And I think it's important to note that that money comes on the backs of people who have passed away or suffered families. And that is why we have that money. And we should respect that and just note that. That said, we have a motion and a second.
Well, I mean, if Mr. Rayner is asking for guideposts, I'll put in the guideposts and I will make a motion, specific motion towards, I'm sorry. Chief, is Chief Blunt on? No? So you can explain what the 35,000 for capital is? I hear him.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Greetings from Key West, Florida.
We are not
So-
funding Key West.
I'm sure you're not. So what we're asking for is there was a minimum amount in equipment and other, we're trying to upgrade and increase our EMT stipends this upcoming year. The big ticket item coming up, and it won't be this year for capital items, but it'll be funded more likely in 2026. We applied for a assistance to firefighter grant to replace our 4,000 gallon tanker with a 3,000 gallon tanker. That was a $28,000 match through AFG. The tanker that we have, the former Middletown tanker, is coming up pretty close to 50 years of age, and it's an old double clutch transmission. I've got maybe 8 guys that can drive it, and it's getting tired. And it's our main source of water supply on an initial attack on a fire on the island. So we've applied for it. We're hoping that the town would be willing to match that. It's about a $538,000 piece of equipment. So that was the big ticket item in that match.
Okay, so for that match, you wouldn't need that until fiscal year 2026 or fiscal year 25-26?
Probably 25-26. I think that's where I had it placed.
Okay, so
Because right now, I mean, you guys approved 2 years ago for the engine that we're going to get this fall, and I think that was an $18,000 match. So usually once they award the if you get the award, it's about a year or two out. So we're looking at, if they award it this year, say this summer, even with the manufacturing delays that we're in right now, we're 2 years out.
So if we were able to take roughly $28,000 out of your request this year and put it forth to next year, it would still be in time for you to be able to get that funding in that new pumper.
That's correct. And that's if it comes through. That's if we get it.
Well,
it's.
I'll make sure we
it's a-
give our state, our federal delegation.
That's been, I've reached out, both senators and Congressman Cicilline have all endorsed it and sending letters of recommendation.
Perfect.
A point of information, I thought that there was discussion that there was being built a facility to house equipment, and that was the capital purchase, not that we were making a down payment on something that would be purchased in the future. Am I wrong about that, Chief?
You are correct.
What's that?
You are correct.
Okay, so there's an apple we just talked about and an orange that's in today's budget.
So to clarify, their fiscal 24 budget request is $20,000 for a carport temporary, and then $15,000 for tanker number 3 pump rehab and electronics upgrades. That's for fiscal 24.
Okay, that doesn't have what we're talking about in the future.
Correct. That's for fiscal
Okay,
25.
I just wanted to be clear.
Okay.
Sorry, I promised I'd shut up.
No, but, well, we're hearing from the chief who runs the department. So, Chief, do you need the $20,000 for a temporary carport and $14,000 for 2024 for pumper upgrades.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
The problem I have now is when I turn around and we get our brand new fire engine this upcoming fall, I've got to take one of our other ready fire engines out of the barn and stick it outside, winterize it and throw a tarp over it during the winter months. What I'm hoping to do, and one of the proposals I had was to take a carport. I'd still have to winterize it, but I could get it out of the winter weather, put it up at the DPW barn and put it up there as a ready piece of equipment if we needed to pump out of one of our cisterns. Until we're still working towards, as an organization, as a department, of possibly putting up an additional building next to a new building next to the fire department and funding that through the PIVFD.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna make a series of motions. I'll make it all in one motion. To make it easy. Yeah, no, look at me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Lucy Kinsley. I'm speaking on behalf of Newport Mental Health. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I wanted to thank the council for your continued support for Newport Mental Health. We did receive a nice bump last year in the support that we were given. We very much appreciated it. We did ask for a small bump again this year, if it's at all possible. I do understand the constraints. I also wanted to question what would be the procedure if Newport Mental Health wanted to apply for some of those opioid settlement funds, because that may also be a perfect application for Newport Mental Health.
If you could speak up, Mr. Rader.
We would have to see the request and put it in for a legal review. There's a lot of strings attached to the money. So it's hard to answer your question in the abstract.
Okay, thank you. I have read all the requirements, and we would like to engage in that process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else online? No, okay.
So I'd like to make the following amendment to Mr. Levesque's motion. I would like,
Can I just clarify something? If in fact they apply for the opiate money and they get approved, it would still be in this grant column that we would do it. We would just indicate we are paying it out of the opioid money, because I believe there was another item that you indicated in the grants was being paid out of the opioid money.
We would make a note of it for information only in the budget so people could track it. But it would not be added to the total, because what's added to the total here is going to the general fund. Any money that's paid out of any other fund would be reflected in a detriment.
So if they were successful in getting that money, it would be here in spirit, but the budget would actually show something else.
Yeah, it would be zeroed out here, but we would probably put a text box or something in there so you would be able to track that you did fund them some money, but it would be coming out of a restricted fund or a special fund, wherever that money is sitting.
non-taxpayer dollars.
Correct.
Mr. Ryan, you.
Right, I keep doing that. I presume nobody wants to hear me. The Four Hearts Foundation request, I presume this is a one-time only request. It's just for construction, correct?
They're pretty close to their goal, so it
Right,
should be a
right,
1 year,
right.
yes.
But the impression I get from talking to people is that it's going to be difficult for them to reach their goals unless we give them some financial help. Am I wrong?
I think
Not the way those two young ladies are going.
Yeah,
But.
they're doing pretty good, but I think they would
It would help.
appreciate the support. And
Yeah.
it's, you know,
And
gonna
actually,
be structures in our town, so.
What is an element in everyone going out and getting, I mean, council support. In going out and getting support from other organizations. Because they always want to know, are the towns that you're located in, assisting you and behind you. And I do know the Pacelli girl, woman, and she is persistent,
Hmm,
and very talented.
yes, indeed.
So I think when we vote on this, we need to include an amendment to state that at least the Prevention Coalition is going to be funded by the money from the opioid settlement. So that would be an amendment we would need to make to the motion.
I don't think we can do that yet.
No.
because We don't know that
No,
they're
no,
gonna
that's
get
the
it
two totally different things, but
premature.
we still want to keep it in the budget because in 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever the number of years is, when we have to fund the
Right.
prevention coalition, we still want it in center support.
Right.
Right.
It's just there'll be a notation in the budget that this
That
money
this
was
is going to
funded
be
from.
supported by this separate funds
Correct.
for this year.
Correct. Or
Yeah.
for the
Mr.
foreseeable
President,
future.
a
hopefully.
point of procedure.
Go ahead.
Mr. Hamilton has indicated that he is going to make a series, well, I believe, a motion in several parts to amend my motion, which is on the floor.
Mhm.
Even though it's going to drag out a little bit, I think that upon each item, he should make that motion, and we will have yay and nay on that amendment.
Sure.
And then at the end, we will have a full motion with whatever amendment you have been successful in doing.
Okay,
I have no
Okay.
qualms with that.
I don't have a problem with that. I
Sure.
can make, it's 5 motions,
Mr.
4
Hamilton,
motions. All right, first motion would be to level fund, Clean Ocean Access to $2,000.
Which organization? I'm sorry?
Clean Ocean Access.
Okay.
But halfway down,
there is a motion.
it's a massive difference of $500.
There is a motion and a second.
So then we would vote on that one.
Motion and a second to amend to
Clean Ocean Access
level fund at.
to level fund at
$2,000.
$2,000, correct?
All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Nay. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Nay.
Dr. Ryan, sorry.
Nay.
And Mr. Katzman?
Nay. Mr.
Okay.
Hamilton,
Next one will be to level fund Eastern Rhode Island Conservation District to $1,000.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Nay.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Nay.
So that one passed 5-2, correct?
You know, regrettably, I know it's just passed. Conservation District was so important to all the farmers in this town, and regrettably, and they asked for nothing. I'm sorry, I'm a sore loser.
Mr. Hamilton,
Next motion would be to grant an increase to the Arts Guild of $500 and give them $2,000 instead of the $10,000 requested.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Nay.
Dr. Ryan?
Nay.
And Mr. Katzman?
Nay. Motion
Fails and,
3-3, yep.
Yep. And the last would be the East Bay Community Action Program. 3,500 is a little bit too big for my riches. I would say we grant them a $1,500 increase and make that $3,000.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All
I
those in
was
favor?
just gonna mention that, because it's a motion on the floor.
Yep.
Another significant organization provides a lot of support to the community. I'm gonna keep a list of all of these and you will see them all back at budget time.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque. There is a motion. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Nay.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Nay. Motion passes, wait,
5-2.
Amendment.
4-2. I'm sorry.
4-2.
4-2. With Ms. Hack here, so here, 4-2.
It's okay.
So
Are we back to the main motion as amended?
Depends. Any
Yep.
further discussion?
Nope, I have no other ones that I would like to change.
We are.
I would,
as Mr.
I
Levesque
do,
said,
I do just request that we have further discussion as to where we can potentially fund the Prudence Island. And also have discussions with Four Hearts to see if there's in kind that we can do. But $20,000 for a $600,000 playground is kind of a drop in the bucket, so I'm not really worried about that, and hopefully there's one-time funds.
And I also join with you in just suggesting if the opioid money is available for either mental health or for other, maybe even community action, perhaps there should be outreach as opposed to them seeking it from us, because I believe that money might be available for a more universal purpose and some people might understand.
Mr.
I would
Lacy.
like to just comment that I look at it, I understand where you're coming from, Counselor. But we're not taking any money away from anybody per se. We're still going to fund people, maybe not at the ideal amount that they've asked us for. But we really haven't shaved much off this budget to do Mr. Rayner any favors, is the point. And I would agree that we should approach the Four Hearts Foundation, see if there's any wiggle room in that number. I think the 566% increase for the Arts Guild was excessive, but be it as it may. We haven't touched the library, and I think that's money well spent, and Prudence needs to be refined. So just my 2 cents worth.
I
Thank you, Mr.
appreciate
Gleason.
Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Gleason, I appreciate your sincerity. It doesn't mean I don't disagree with you.
It's
No
just,
problem.
if we did 566% increases, we'd never have any money across the board. I don't think the Arts Guild is a great organization. I just don't think we can afford $8,500 this year, but we'll bring it up again at budget time.
Yes, we will. So we have a motion, the main motion as amended. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Nay.
Mr. Hamilton?
Nay.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Ms. Levesque?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye. Motion passes, was that 42?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Chief Blount has his hand back up again. Did you just forget to take it down? Right.
Okay.
Chief, does Chief want to speak again? Well, hopefully he's going to Sloppy Joe's.
I think we can move on to item number 8, Rhode Island Energy installing pole 1.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Despite Mr. Woodhead wanting to get a little exercise there.
That was a very smooth move.
All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye,
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
we're all scared of Brian. So as soon as he got up,
Hey, if you don't want to get plowed in,
that's right.
We have, moving on to correspondence.
Mr. President, I move that all the correspondence be received and placed on file.
Seconded.
Just a quick question since, no, never mind. Nope,
All set?
all set. Yep.
All set.
I just have a quick comment. Our comprehensive plan came back apparently approved, so
Yep.
congratulations to
Again,
the town government and Ms. Hitchens. And again, well done. It's interesting, we're getting a lot of information now about moderating it somehow, but it's never done.
yeah, it's a plan.
It's a plan.
We have a
Now-
motion.
Now the hard work comes, we have to change all your zoning laws and ordinances to adhere to it.
I've been there, done that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye. For future meetings, we will have our regular scheduled meetings on February 27th, March 13th, and March 27th, all at 7 p.m. Although there may be executive sessions added to that.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
And Mr. Capson? He's kind of.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.